What's it like cycling in Osaka?
In this video, we're going to share some of our thoughts. So we've cycled here for a week, and I've done a bit of cycling here in the past, just a smidge, but that was on a terrible rental here. Just give us your room key and you can have this very run-down old mamachari. Editor Aaron here. I've subsequently done a trip by myself where I probably racked up about 1,500 to 2,000 Ks, including a ride to Osaka to Kyoto. Look out for that video. And also around Nara, and plenty through the verbs of Osaka and in the city also. So I'm just going to chime in a little bit in the text down the bottom for clarifications and other things that I think are mentionable. First, let's talk about the environment.
The physical environment is quite flat, except for like if you're talking about inner city Osaka and the surrounding suburbs, which is cycle friendly. We come from Brisbane, which is hilly AF, and there's lots of bikeways. Like a lot of pathways have half bike, half pedestrian.
Yeah, you wouldn't really call them bikeways.
Yeah, because they're not segregated as just bike only. It's just like having very wide pathways, and sometimes they're labelled with a picture of a bike, and sometimes there's just like a tiny little divider line. Sometimes there's nothing. There's also still demarcation on the road in a lot of areas too. So if you just want to weave, if it's too pedestrian heavy, you can just weave onto the road, and riding on the road is relatively safe. Like safer than I felt riding anywhere else, because cars don't go very fast. They stay wider of the rider, as they say in Queensland, and they slow down when they're coming around you. And also, most people here own a bike, so they're not going to hit you off. And most of the people you see that are riding are like...
That's 1 in 3?
Yeah, you see mums. I've seen mums, the most I've ever seen in one bike was in a baby carrier on the front, on the back. The bikes themselves are very inexpensive. The bike I've got is better than my one back home, I would say.
Yeah. Well, that one might be more quality. It's hard to determine which is better. They're just different. That one's not meant for car going to children, whereas this one, from the manufacturer, it's designed to carry mum and 2 children. So it's a bit more bulky.
This is the energy we deal with from 6 a.m. till 9:30 p.m.
I say that was zero hyperbole.
But I have a motorised bike. Not motorised, electric, semi-electric, pedal assist bike.
Call it PAS, pedal assisted system.
I'm not super bothered by the hills, but Aaron probably has to do a little bit of pedalling.
I've been riding a single speed bike in a town that has a lot of hills, and so it's been a revelation.
Having gears.
And at first I rode it, I was like, I don't even need these gears. This is flat, this is easy. But the other day I was out for 13 hours, and yeah, of course we had to park it at times, but it was just easy. I was planning to get a rear rack and just getting a baby seat for that, because I was pretty confident I could get him around on it. I am quite bike fit. I think it would have been fine.
He's 16 kilos and a beast.
Yeah.
I think he'd be fine with a baby seat on that bike.
Yeah, it could absolutely be done. But we were going to get an electric bike because we want to use the bike as a car. Insert a picture of us, me getting 3 light fixtures, and yeah, that was fun. In the whole of Osaka, the terrain changes as much as it does in 2 suburbs in Brisbane. So the terrain is a really good canvas to make a good biking city because of the flatness. A bit like Holland.
There's something nice about riding your bike when a whole bunch of other people are riding their bike. So it's really nice to ride around when you're just riding around with other people for the sake of going down to the shops and having a leisurely ride. Like, it doesn't have to be a physical exercise in Lycra.
Yeah, that's another...
So that kind of is fun because everybody else is doing something similar and nobody's in this speed rush trying to get in your peloton.
That's the next point. What kind of riders is Osaka good for? The general community is probably its best for. Like people who don't even consider themselves cyclists. It's about as inclusive as it gets. Maybe not as good as some of those European countries that we've all seen videos on, but perhaps the best in Asia.
There's a lot of people cycling over 65. If that's any indicator of rideability of a city.
If you're a Lycra type bike rider, I think you might prefer Seoul because you would be less fazed by the hills and there is more dedicated bike lanes there. If you don't consider yourself a cyclist, then it's going to be great for you. People who are not comfortable riding, you will be at times feel like you have to get on the road and mix it up with the cars, Then it takes a little bit of getting out of your comfort zone like it did for us. We don't like going on the roads at all. We tell our big kids not to go on the roads at all. Precious few times do I go on the roads in Australia because it's a hostile environment.
And you just don't want to run the risk of getting clipped. People aren't always concentrating or hit by a car door.
They don't have 20k speed limits, 30k, 40k speed limits in Australia.
But
Nothing
they can be driving very,
is lower
very
than
fast.
50.
Yeah. In terms of safety, it's a very safe place to ride.
We'll talk about that a bit more in a second, but if you are a Lycra type bike rider, I think you'll like it also. There are some bike lanes that come and go, and if you choose bike riding as your mode of transport on Google Maps, it will kind of favour the more bike-friendly streets and roads, so that's really good. And you can also go through the really narrow one-lane kind of suburbia.
Beautiful back streets.
And yeah, there is a little bit of collision. There's no roundabouts, of course, in these tiny little places, but there are opportunities to have collisions, and apparently 55% or 75%. I've seen 2 statistics on it in literature here. That's where most collisions happen. Up to 55 to 75% will happen in those little intersections. The motorized scooters that are on the road that have engines, they are dangerous. I feel like they're the most rogue things. The bike riders can be quite rogue, and I kind of think that's great because they're only endangering their own lives.
In a minute.
Except when they mix out with pedestrians. I think pedestrians always have right of way, and cars need to give way to bikes on the roads, and cyclists need to give way to pedestrians on the pathway. If you come in with that attitude and those expectations while having a good sense of self-preservation, I think you'll have a good time riding bikes around here. I mean,
very soon.
We definitely have a good time.
Do you want to get your truck?
Bike rides. What did I say after?
You're unwrapping a present every day.
Yeah. The excitement of riding around here, I wonder when it will wane a little bit, because I plan to be cycling here for the rest of my life.
An indicator of if something is good is when something shit happens and you can still persevere. When I first got on the bike that Aaron bought me, it's got like really narrow handlebars and it's really wobbly.
It's a swept back handlebar. So
when you're trying to ride, it's very...
feels loosey-goosey.
Yeah. It's difficult and it handles very differently to the bike that I normally ride. Plus when you add a toddler, a heavy-ass, wild toddler on the back, not a well-behaved Japanese toddler, like a lunatic Caucasian toddler.
He goes as manic as we do.
He gets really excited and
he's got Japan mania, just like his parents.
So he'll swing either side, so that's throwing your tail out, and I'm also sometimes a little bit unco. Anyway, we'd gone for a decent ride the first day, no dramas, and then the next day we were going on a really big ride. And I will say, Aaron is a little bit of a impulsive rider sometimes. You make a lot of very rapid...
Perhaps that's fair.
Sometimes he jags. Basically, we call it jagging, which is where you just like cut in front of anyone without a lot of notice. And on a bike like this, I can't stop very fast.
I got in the gap.
I'm handling... And he was trying to move out of the way of someone else. Anyway, he cut in front of me quite quickly. And I braked and turned to get away from him and had a decent stack, whereby I've skinned both my knees and my elbow. But my bike doesn't have a scratch on it because I took the brunt.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's picking up here, but there's some slight bruising.
An enormous hematoma on my chin. Like to the point
and
where...
And this doesn't look pretty when you...
Can you stop poking on them, please?
I'm not poking underneath
you were
them.
enough for them to hurt. Like there's about
elbows.
25... This is the only unscathed limb because it was away from the
At least you got
concrete.
one.
Anyway, I got some cracking shiners that I haven't had since I used to drink too many beers or something and had a stack, but it was a decent effort where I lifted myself. But I was not injured. The baby in my belly was not injured. And Rumi got a little bit of a bruise on his arm. You go on the elephant, Baba.
Go on the elephant slide.
Big one. Whoa.
This amazing park.
Great job.
There's the camera with the bikes.
Anyway, decent stack. I just wanted to crack on what we were doing with the day. So I'm like pissing out a little bit of blood. Got some Band-Aids, no dramas. Had a good day. And the only reason I didn't want to get on the bikes the next day was because I was just like a little bit too bruised and battered, and I needed to just have like a rest day. Then proceeded to happily get back on the bike again since then multiple times. And it doesn't really turn me off.
Can you imagine the shame, the deep shame that I felt doing that to my pregnant wife and toddler?
Yeah, but I mean, I
What?
probably overreacted a little bit.
Gets quite tight too, like in some of
Very
the...
narrow and a lot of bikes and not a lot of space. Not everywhere. Like when you're riding out here is no dramas, but when you're riding in the city, it can be a little bit more dicey.
And some people will ride tandem on a footpath, and I actually think that's really great. And I love that people feel comfortable to do that, and
Yeah.
it's a social thing to ride a bike, and you just turn into a bit of a fish in a school of fish.
I like the freedom of being able to get quite a reasonable distance with a toddler that doesn't like being in a pram.
Just another thing on the safety factor, while I was talking about the scooters are dangerous, this young guy, when I had right away, he just zipped by me, and he was so close to clipping my front tyre and me just having a low side and just breaking my hip, breaking my arm. Maybe I was going a little bit faster than most people on pushies, and maybe that's why he wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't going too fast, maybe 20 Ks. I wasn't hooking it. No matter where you go, there's always going to be unsafe people. It's just how many. And there isn't many here. So there's either heaps of people doing unsafe things, like perhaps, I'm not going to mention one of those countries, or it's very few people doing unsafe things. I mean, even Holland, the gold standard of bicycling, they're having issues with electric bikes there and people doing unsafe things, and there's been some deaths, so they're going to have to manage that. Here, there's always a chance of grievous bodily harm. And yeah, I think it's quite reasonable, but we want to do some kind of insurance because Gaijin are kind of fucked if you crash into someone here. Pedestrians really, maybe other bicycles, when we live here 6 months of the year. I just want to say one more thing. There are a few bike-specific lanes that are staggered with stoplights and other chicane things. Remy, look.
Look!
Remy, look.
Remy Paul! Arigatou gozaimasu!
Pokemon card.
Arigatou gozaimasu! You say thank you!
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa! Arigatou gozaimasu! Run and get
Grab
it!
it.
Quickly!
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Arigatou gozaimasu!
He's getting a bit sunburned, so we need to wrap this
We
up.
do need to wrap this
I
up.
had 4 seasons here.
And I've got some really good Pokemon cards to go deal. So
People are so nice
people
here.
are so lovely. This child constantly gets gifts for like absolutely no reason. This lady just gave him socks yesterday. Do people just feel
Yeah.
sorry for us? I don't know.
No, people just
People are very, very generous.
appreciate him.
And kind. And that was extremely cute.
It's one of the
Look.
upsides in a declining population where people just want to be helpful with people who do decide to have children.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate that because it is kind of hard, as my affect in the start of the video will confirm. Yeah, so those lanes along the rivers, there's some good sites that you can find online, and they're very good. Can't wait to go on them. I've only been on it a tiny bit, but they look fantastic and can't wait. That's about everything.
Thanks for joining us by getting sunburnt.
Yeah.
This feels like a long summer or something. The UV is pretty gnarly.
We're going to go to a Viking-themed restaurant.
Buffet restaurant.
All you can eat meats and desserts. And
Also, family restaurants in Japan are fantastic, and they're fantastic if you have children.
yeah.
It's time to go. Want to have some lunch?
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.